Hippocrates said that all healing begins in the gut. So what does this really mean? So think about it. Are you taking Tums? Are you having acid in your stomach? Are you getting bloated on a regular basis? Or maybe are you having skin rashes, anxiety, or depression? Or do you have an autoimmune disease? All of these conditions are linked to the gut. So I want to share my story with you. In 2016, I started having rashes. First, it was on my back, then it was on my elbows, it was on my knees. And they were heavy, thick plaques. And it really looked like something, what would be called psoriasis. But I knew as a physician that in your 40s, it's not common to get psoriasis. It is an autoimmune condition, but typically people that get it are much younger. So I started to explore a little bit deeper because I went to see my GP and I was prescribed a steroid cream, which is what we do for skin rashes. But I knew that this wasn't normal, and I knew that my intestines weren't feeling quite right as well. Also, I was beginning to have some anxiety at that time and some brain fog. So when I dove deeper, I realized that anything that happens on the outside of the body is simply a reflection of what's going on inside the body as well. So what I did that year, I went on a gut reset. I removed any foods that were triggering irritation for my body. I went on some supplements and I healed my rashes. They went away. This was not psoriasis. This was simply a manifestation because my gut was out of balance. I had leaky gut and it was causing problems with my skin. So almost over the past 10 years, I've really been focusing on this with patients, and it's a really big part of my practice because all healing needs to begin in the gut. So why is the gut so crucial for health? Well, number one, we have to say first, is your gut unhealthy? So if you have any of those conditions that I described above, or I want you to think about the consistency of your stool. Now, your stool is another vital sign. Often we don't think about this, but if more and more patients that I see, they're going to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a day, almost immediately after they eat, or I get the opposite end that people are not going maybe once or twice a week, then there is something wrong with your body. You know, our body has an amazing intelligence. If we actually take the time to listen to it, it will tell us what's going wrong. So I want you to think a little bit about your digestive system. Is there anything there that might be giving you a signal? Because again, we can try to sweep things under the rug. We can take an antacid pill, but this is not getting to the root of the problem. So the gut, it's super important, right? We know this gut-brain connection that and we also know the immune system connection. So we know serotonin, one of these really good feel-good brain chemicals, we have more of this in our gut than we have circulating in our brain. So if your mood is off, if you're suffering from anxiety, then you have to begin to think backwards, like the gut could be the root of this problem. And the immune system, so just like I had psoriasis, what looked to be psoriasis, but there's many other people that have gut-related issues. And of course, for those people that have Crohn's or colitis, yes, it does matter what you eat. You know, I've seen many patients go to a specialist, for gut issues, and they don't actually mention anything about the food that's going into the body. And the other is they often will say that it doesn't have any impact on your body. But luckily now we have gastroenterologists out there that know that autoimmune diseases, things like Crohn's and colitis, can be reversed with nutrition. So this is very promising. And it also gives a lot of hope because we know that we can do something actively to change our health. So why are gut problems increasing so much in our modern society? So first, it has to begin with ultra-processed food. If I think about the food that my dad used to eat, it was basically meat and potatoes. He didn't really have much cans or processed food. My grandmother baked bread every day from scratch. So the processing wasn't there. But now it is so easy for us to go to the store and buy whatever we want. But also we buy food that is refined again and again and again. So if you look at a package and there's more than 3 or 4 ingredients on it, then generally it's ultra processed. But even more than that, there's a lot of additives to these products like carrageenans, things that help to stabilize food that are just not good for our gut. And if you think about it, any package of those like Twinkies, or I'm thinking of Flakies or Vachon cakes, if they can sit on a shelf for months and months at a time, think about the preservatives and chemicals that must be in those products. And really, it does have to have an effect on our body when we're having those chemicals. But what else is happening with our modern lifestyle? So antibiotics, especially when I was a kid, a lot of times you'd go to the doctor, any type of earache or sore throat, you were been put on antibiotics. Through our WISE campaigns on choosing antibiotics wisely, we look at kids, especially if they're over 2 years old and they don't have a fever, we do a watch and wait approach because most ear infections actually can go away on their own. We don't want to just take antibiotics for any cough or cold because it's destroying all these good, healthy bugs that live inside us. The other thing is we use excess amounts of pain medicines, aspirin and Advil, ibuprofen. These things are destroying the acid in our stomach. They're actually also a very high source of stomach bleeds. When I worked in the emergency department, the amount of people that would come in that had bleeding ulcers because they were taking so much of these medications. And the other thing to think about in this post-COVID era is the impact that COVID has on our gut. Now, pre-COVID, I saw people, of course, with gut issues, but now almost, I'd say 80% of my patients have something going on with their gut, and many of them didn't have a gut issue before. But we know COVID hangs around in the gut. It can cause anything that was not working well before to be amplified if you had an infection or if you had the vaccination. So this is not talked about in circles, but it's definitely playing a lot of havoc. So much havoc to the point that they're actually using a drug that's used to treat a SIBO, which is a bacterial gut overgrowth. They're using this for COVID right now. So this may be why you're having more problems than you ever had before. But the other things that we're seeing in this modern society is so much stress. And yes, stress affects our gut. Think about it. When you're nervous, you're going to a job interview, you're going on a date. What happens? You get the heebie-jeebies. Your belly doesn't feel good. Maybe you're running to the bathroom a few times. And this is the impact that stress has on our nervous system. So if you multiply that time and time again by jobs, by stress, by families, by our modern society that's addicted 24 hours a day to cell phones and being busy, then we know that this stress is having an impact on our body as well. And also there's things that maybe you didn't think about. Number one is gallbladder. So having your gallbladder removed can have a huge impact on your gut. And I know this because for many years I suffered from gut problems after I had my gallbladder out just when I was 24. And I think it really did contribute to me having this skin rashes and psoriasis when I was in my 40s. But if you've had your gallbladder out, it can be causing a lot of havoc in your body. So something to consider. And even things like having a bad stomach flu. So in the wintertime, often we have the stomach flu going around. But many people like to travel down south, or maybe they're going overseas and they get traveler's diarrhea. Well, those infectious diarrhea can actually cause kind of long-term irritation and inflammation within the gut. So that's something to consider as well. So what do we know about the gut? So what is this? I talk about we need to reset our gut, and our healing begins within the gut. But the gut is simply a tube. It starts at our mouth and it runs down to our rectum. And in between, we've got our stomach, we've got our intestines, we've got all the enzymes that get released from our pancreas, from our liver. So all of this is part of our gut. And there's only over 30 feet of just this tube that runs. But like I said before, the outside of the tube is our skin. So anything that we're seeing on the skin is an extension of what's going on within our body. And you've heard people talk about the gut microbiome. So this is the connection of all the bacteria that start from our mouth, they go into our stomach, our intestines, and these bacteria number in the trillions. And when they get disrupted, they can start to cause havoc within our body. So what can be other reasons that you find that the gut gets out of balance. So we talked a little bit about, medications that we can, the anti-inflammatories, the antibiotics, but there's other things that we do in our diet beyond the ultra-processed foods. And number one, I would say, would be coffee. Coffee is one of the most socially acceptable addictive type substances that we have. And a few coffee a day can be fine. But coffee on an empty stomach is not good for a lot of people because coffee is very acidic. Also, coffee can carry high amounts of mold. So think about coffee beans. Often they're picked, they're put in silos before they come to you. And so mold in coffee can cause problems on its own. And then the other thing, which we see so much of now, is number one is juice drinks, but energy drinks, right? I see these all of the time. And especially in the younger population, they're coming in, and often they're having one or two of these a day. So number one, they have huge amounts of sugar, often 30 to 40 grams in one small can. They often have artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose, but they are spiked with caffeine. And this caffeine is above and beyond what people are used to taking. So we need to consider the consequences of what these things are doing on our gut. So how can you begin to work on the gut? What are just a few tips in this short little video that can help you? So number one is adding variety to your foods. So there was a study done in 2014, and they looked at those people that had a healthier microbiome. So all those bacteria and fungus that live inside us. And those people were eating 30 different types of food a week. Now you might say, well, Dr. Keenan, I just eat the same thing every day and that's what works for me. Well, actually, when it comes to food, variety is good. I want you to think about color. I want you to think about texture. I want you to think about spices, nuts, and seeds. So in particular, when it comes, we all know we've got our fruits, we've got our vegetables, but nuts and seeds and spices can introduce so much more into our microbiome. They can add a lot of variety, and especially with spices, cloves, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, turmeric, all of those things can contribute to feeding the good bacteria within us to help to promote a healthy gut. So the other thing when it comes to your gut, in addition to having the variety, again, is the color. So we know that when we eat a variety of colored foods, each of those colors is going to be bringing in different polyphenols, different antioxidants that's actually going to help to stimulate different bacteria to grow within our gut. So thinking about your plate, is it colorful or is it just brown and white? So always think about planning your plate to be more colorful. And then we think a little bit about the drinks that we have. So number one, I really don't think anyone needs any processed juices, energy drinks if you're going to have them on the rarest of occasions. Coffee and teas are fine, but we really need to focus on water. And we really need to think about where we're getting our water. So water is not meant to be still, and I don't think water is meant to be drunk from a plastic jug. Now, I know many of you that might be the only option, but if you can at least get mineral or spring water, because those minerals in water are good for us. And another trick maybe for you is to add a little bit of salt to your water, add a little bit of lemon or lime juice, or even ginger. That's my favorite these days. In the morning, I'll boil a pot of hot water with an inch or so of ginger and then sip on that throughout the day because I'm getting not only some electrolytes, but I'm getting the very potent benefits of ginger on our system. So we've got the variety of our meals. We've got colorful meals. We've got hydration. And I think you want to think about is how you eat. So many people eat, they gobble down their food, okay? I talk to my family about this all the time, especially the teenage boys, right? Because within seconds, the food is in your mouth. But if we just take the time to slow down, we can begin already to improve our digestion. So take time, think about it. Where are you having your meals? Are you sitting at the table, or are you standing at the counter, or eating from a bag, or maybe while you're driving in your car? Slow down. Put your fork down between bites. Chew each mouthful before you get into the next mouthful. Why is that important? Because our body knows how to digest food. When we're eating whole foods, We release enzymes from our stomach, from our pancreas, to help us to break down and digest those foods. So if you feel that you're bloated after your meals, maybe think about how long is it taking you to eat your meals and slowing down just a little bit more. And then it comes to movement. So when we look at problems with our gut and digestion, lack of physical movement can really impact our digestion too, especially when it comes to constipation. So some of the greatest people that have digestive issues are those in nursing homes. And why is that? Because they're not moving. So moving every day, moving mindfully, moving regularly, if you have bowel issues, in particular constipation, can really contribute to you having a better gut and a better digestive system. So those are a few little tips to get you started. But because the gut is such a big organ, because healing begins in the gut, so next week in my inner circle, I would love for you to join me if you really think that I've got some gut concerns, I really want to overcome them. I'm going to be giving you the program that I've done and that I often do at least once a year to help get my gut reset, to get things back in order. So my inner circle is a group where we meet every Tuesday from noon to 1 Atlantic time. And for the month of January, we're going to focus on 21 days of getting our gut reset. So it's not going to be hard, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And when we do it in a group, it's going to give us motivation. So I'm going to share more tips, more information on the microbiome, the foods that we can eat, what we need to do to really bring our health back into our own corner and to be the ones responsible for our health by really paying attention to the food we eat. Because when we nourish our body with healthy food, we're going to help our body to get reset on the inside out. And that's truly all that we want. We want to minimize any medications that we need to take. So I'm going to share my best tips and takeaways. So you're going to be live with me every Tuesday for the month of January and beyond. But if you want to register, the link will be in the bio. It's just $49 for the month of January. So it's a very small cost to really think about getting your body reset for the new year for 2025. I hope this has been helpful to you all, and I hope you're having a wonderful week so far as we enter this new and amazing year. Take care. Bye for now.